Puma Punku and Tiwanaku in Bolivia.
It's an aerial view of what is called Puma Punku, located near Lake Titicaca. This is a close-up of 4 of the H blocks. Again, we physically measured them, and some are more than an inch wider than the others.
Perched 12,600 feet above sea level in the Bolivian highlands, Puma Punku has long baffled archaeologists with its 100-ton stones, razor-thin joints, and impossible precision. But when AI was unleashed on thousands of scans to digitally rebuild it in 2025, something chilling emerged. Catastrophic damage patterns, astronomical alignments, and modular engineering far beyond its time. What if this ruin isn't just ancient, but a warning carved in stone? The result is not just stunning, it's terrifying. What we already know about Puma Punku. At an altitude of nearly 3,850 meters, more than 12,600 feet above sea level, sits one of the most enigmatic ancient sites in the world. Puma Punku, a sprawling megalithic complex in western Bolivia, is part of the greater Tiwanaku archaeological zone. Located near the southeastern edge of Lake Titicaca, this high-altitude plateau has been home to human settlement for thousands of years. Archaeological estimates date the core construction of Puma Punku to around AD 536 to 600, coinciding with the early expansion of the Tiwanaku civilization. Its elevated position, harsh climate, and remote access make its massive architecture all the more perplexing. What sets Puma Punku apart from other pre-Columbian sites is its use of both red sandstone and andesite, two very different stones in terms of hardness and workability. The red sandstone, quarried from locations approximately 10 kilometers away, was used to form the platform slabs and foundations. The andesite, much harder and far more difficult to carve, was sourced from quarries on the Copacabana Peninsula, roughly 90 kilometers distant, likely requiring transport across Lake Titicaca. The largest of the red sandstone blocks, known as the Plataforma Litica, measures approximately 7.81 meters by 5.17 meters by 1.07 meters, with an estimated weight of 131 metric tons. The site itself is a complex T-shaped platform mound covering an area about 116.7 meters east-west by 167.4 meters north-south. Within this space, archaeologists have identified multiple levels of retaining walls, sunken courts, and terraced stonework. The construction technique shows clear signs of multi-phase building, with some layers indicating repair or modification over time. Foundations beneath many blocks consist of tightly packed clay, gravel, and sand, while cut stone retaining walls ensure the structure's stability. This suggests not only a deep knowledge of civil engineering, but also long-term planning, possibly over decades or centuries. Beyond the sheer size of the stones, it is the craftsmanship that defies expectations. Many andesite blocks exhibit extremely smooth planar faces, sharp internal angles, and tight-fitting joints. Some joints are so precise that researchers have claimed not even a razor blade can fit between them. This level of precision challenges the conventional toolkit of the time: stone hammers, bronze chisels, and sand abrasion. Scholars like Jean-Pierre Protzen and Stella Nair have attempted to replicate this workmanship using experimental archaeology, but their results suggest that achieving such finishes with available tools would be not only labor-intensive but nearly impossible at scale. While what we already know about Puma Punku is extraordinary, the geography, materials, and layout, what remains unresolved is even more compelling. Questions arise. How were the 100-ton blocks moved over rugged terrain? Why are the andesite blocks so perfectly standardized? And what techniques did ancient builders use to create modular, interchangeable components without metal tools or written plans? These questions open the door to a deeper inquiry, not just how Puma Punku was built, but why it was designed with such overwhelming complexity and care. Why Puma Punku seems impossible. If Puma Punku were built in the modern era with cranes, diamond saws, and computer-aided design, it would still be considered a masterwork of engineering. But by traditional archaeology, The site was constructed over 1,400 years ago, during the height of the Tiwanaku civilization around AD 536 to 600. This timing raises troubling contradictions, especially when examined against the site's engineering precision, material hardness, and logistical demands. To carve and move stones of such size and quality using only primitive tools defies straightforward explanation. Start with the andesite. This volcanic rock ranks around 5.5 to 6 on the MOA's hardness scale, making it significantly harder than bronze or copper, the only metals known to be available to Andean cultures during this period. Yet the andesite blocks at Puma Punku are not just carved, they are sculpted with such precision that their surfaces appear almost machined. Some blocks feature right-angled T-shaped grooves, dovetail cuts, and H-blocks with perfect internal symmetry. The most remarkable of these structures, several dozen H-blocks, fit together like puzzle pieces. The level of detail, symmetry, and repeatability suggests not random carving, but a deliberate and standardized system. Then comes the weight. The largest red sandstone slab measures approximately 7.81 meters by 5.17 meters by 1.07 meters, with an estimated mass of 131 tons. Transporting such a monolith from its quarry, 10 kilometers away, without wheels, roads, or draft animals, would require an unimaginable coordination. The andesite blocks, sourced from as far as 90 kilometers, would have had to cross Lake Titicaca, ascend into the high plateau, and be positioned precisely in multi-ton assemblies. No ramps, pulleys, or lifting frameworks from the time have been found at the site. Equally perplexing is the absence of tools. Archaeological digs at Puma Punku have yet to produce chisel heads, metal saws, or even clear evidence of how bronze or stone tools might have produced such results. Unlike sites in Egypt or Mesopotamia, where tool marks align with surviving implements, Puma Punku leaves no such clues. The precision of the andesite blocks, their flatness, parallelism, and internal geometry appears to exceed the limits of hammerstones and abrasives. Engineers like Alexei Vranich, who have laser scanned the site, argue that the precision seen in some of these blocks would be challenging even today. The closer we examine the impossible features of Puma Punku, its polished andesite blocks, its modular interlocking shapes, and its seemingly unexplainable transport logistics, the more the mystery deepens. The site's components weren't simply functional, they were systematized. Something about the construction process hints at a level of planning, repeatability, and architectural foresight that feels more like factory production than hand-carved ritual stonework. It is from this realization that the next layer of inquiry emerges: how modern technology, particularly AI and 3D scanning, might help us reconstruct what was once whole. Collecting the data for reconstruction. Reconstructing Puma Punku has long been hampered by one critical limitation: its ruinous condition. Most of the blocks are no longer in their original positions. Some have toppled, others are partially buried, and many are fractured into pieces. Yet modern tools, laser scanning and photogrammetry, and drone-based 3D mapping have started to change this. Between 2016 and 2024, teams using high-resolution imaging gathered terabytes of spatial data, mapping each stone's dimensions, tool marks, fracture lines, and erosion patterns. This data serves as the raw material for AI-driven reconstructions. Ground-penetrating radar GPR and magnetometry have been used to probe beneath the surface. At depths ranging from 0.5 to 2.5 meters, researchers identified subsurface anomalies, foundations, buried channels, and disconnected retaining walls. Particularly between Puma Punku and the nearby Kalasasaya complex, imaging shows a network of architectural elements that may once have linked ceremonial spaces. Some features suggest sunken corridors, water-carrying conduits, or rooms beneath the visible platform mound, hidden since at least the 9th century AD. In parallel, a detailed study of tool marks and surface finishes has allowed geologists to distinguish between andesite and sandstone more clearly. Analysis of mineral grain alignment, fracture texture, in lichen growth patterns helps determine which stones have shifted from their original locations. For example, andesite blocks with fine vertical scoring suggest finishing strokes, while deeper gouges imply quarry separation. Using this information, AI models are able to predict original placement by matching not just size and shape, but also surface age and wear. The reconstruction effort is further refined by matching geological data with quarry locations. The red sandstone comes from Cerro Capilla, about 10 kilometers away, while andesite appears linked to Copacabana Peninsula. These known distances allow AI to model likely transport routes, block movement pathways, and possible assembly sequences. Elevation data, sun angle mapping, and alignment studies using software such as Stellarium are then integrated to test for celestial relationships. Together, these tools give us a new lens through which to view the ancient site, not as a ruin, but as a complex, data-rich artifact waiting to be digitally restored. AI rebuilds the ruin. With thousands of data points from drone surveys, LiDAR scans, and surface modeling, AI-based reconstruction tools began reassembling Puma Punku like a colossal 3D jigsaw puzzle. Starting in 2021, teams fed high-resolution scans of over 150 stone blocks into neural network systems trained to recognize symmetry, joint patterns, and architectural motifs. The result was a digital reimagining of the complex original form, a massive stepped platform with interlocking terraces, elevated causeways, sunken courts, and ceremonial corridors. The mound itself re-emerged in a precise T-shape, consistent with solar ceremonial alignments. Most strikingly, the AI model repositioned the iconic H-blocks, identifying at least 19 unique subtypes based on internal groove patterns, dimensions, and corner symmetry. These blocks, once scattered across the site, were digitally aligned into vertical and horizontal configurations. In simulations, they slot together almost perfectly, some in sequences as long as 5 meters, forming what may have been corridor walls or elevated gateways. Even minor angular discrepancies, less than 0.3 degrees, were smoothed out, suggesting the original builders worked with levels of accuracy nearly impossible with basic tools. Water channels, once barely visible amid rubble, were traced by following slight depressions in the ground and channel residues still clinging to the sides of certain slabs. These channels were rebuilt into a system that appears to direct water through 3 parallel paths, with gradient slopes less than 1%, possibly feeding reflective pools or controlled drainage for ceremonial spaces. In some reconstructions, these pools sit precisely aligned with the southern-facing courtyards, perhaps for viewing celestial reflections. Gateways, long thought to be randomly displaced, were shown by AI to align tightly with cardinal directions. In particular, a set of 3 doorways line up within 0.5 degrees of true east, leading into a plaza believed to have hosted solar rituals. Simulations from June 21st and December 21st, the solstices, revealed sunlight entering these gateways at precise angles, illuminating specific stones. Combined with platform elevation data and surrounding horizon lines, the digital reconstruction confirms intentional astronomical alignment, reinforcing theories that Puma Punku was more than a ceremonial center. It was also a cosmic observatory. From fragmented ruins to a virtually restored ceremonial complex, the AI reconstructions breathe new life into Puma Punku. But geometry and alignment are only part of the story. As researchers began examining the blocks more closely, digitally and physically, they uncovered something even more unexpected. Patterns of repeated design, modular construction, and standardized dimensions. Puma Punku, it seemed, was not just built with precision, it was built with systems, as if its architects were following an industrial logic thousands of years ahead of its time. Hidden geometry and celestial design. Behind Puma Punku's visible stonework lies a web of encoded geometry. AI analysis revealed that many of the blocks, especially door lintels and gateway frames, conform to the golden ratio, or approximately 1.618 to 1. Measurements of 23 separate lintels, when compared across multiple reconstructions, show consistent proportional spacing between height and width, suggesting aesthetic or symbolic purpose. These ratios echo those found in nature, sacred architecture, and even later civilizations like the Greeks. That such harmony emerged in a pre-literate Andean society hints at intuitive or esoteric knowledge passed down through unknown means. Alignments go beyond solstices. Using stellarium and archaeological solar data from 500 to 800 AD, researchers found that certain platform angles correspond to rare celestial events, such as lunar standstill cycles, which occur every 18.6 years, and alignments with the Milky Way's galactic bulge, visible during high-altitude winter skies. One particularly aligned channel, reconstructed to reflect moonlight into a basin during specific lunar phases, may have functioned as a lunar mirror, marking cyclical water ceremony dates. These findings were supported by light simulation studies from 2022 to 2024, correlating beam paths with stone angles. Block faces also reveal echo patterns. AI pattern matching algorithms found that the shapes of some blocks replicate, on a smaller scale, the geometry of the entire site. For example, an andesite slab measuring 2.3 meters wide reflects the overall platform shape in miniature, with inward-facing grooves mimicking platform terraces. This repetition of form within form suggests fractal-like symbolism, where macrostructures repeat microforms, common in indigenous cosmology, where the universe is mirrored in sacred architecture. Even erosion tells a story. Some block surfaces, facing in consistent directions, show asymmetrical wear patterns that may indicate intentional placement to interact with light, wind, or seasonal moisture. In one case, a block showing striated lichen lines and differential staining was rotated in 3D modeling, revealing that it originally faced the summer solstice sunrise. Its angle, measured at 28.3 degrees off true north, matched solar altitude data for June 21st at the site's latitude. These alignments suggest the builders were not just engineers, they were astronomers, cosmologists, perhaps even philosophers of place and sky. The deeper we dive, the clearer it becomes. Puma Punku was not merely a temple or a meeting space. It was an engineered system, a dialogue between stone and star, between earth and season. But one revelation began to redefine the entire structure: the astonishing regularity of its blocks. If geometry encoded meaning, then the next layer of mystery was mechanical. How were these pieces made with such interchangeability? And could an ancient culture have developed something resembling modular manufacturing? Standardization and factory-like process. When engineers first studied the Puma Punku blocks in the 1990s, some remarked on the striking regularity of their features. But it wasn't until AI scanning in 2023 to 2025 that this idea was quantified. Algorithms comparing edge lengths, slot widths, and groove depths across over 80 H-blocks found that many components varied by less than 0.1 millimeter. Such tolerances, in a modern factory, would suggest machine tooling. In a 6th century Andes context, it suggests something equally astounding: precision templates, master molds, or a system of prefabrication. Modularity was more than aesthetic. The AI model detected 45 distinct block classes, each repeated multiple times across the site. These classes include door lintels, terrace caps, T-slot connectors, and drainage blocks, all with nearly identical measurements. In one instance, a 2.1 meter wide T-slot block matches perfectly with grooves on 5 other stones found 15 meters away. This consistency implies not just repetition, but intent, a process where blocks could be swapped, replaced, or fitted together in multiple configurations. The presence of metallic cramps, discovered in retaining wall joints, adds to the picture. Made of a copper arsenic nickel alloy, these eye-shaped fasteners held stone pairs together with internal tension. While corrosion has erased most of the metal, residues and matching indentations confirm their presence. Similar techniques were used in Egyptian and Hellenistic architecture, but their appearance at Puma Punku, thousands of kilometers and centuries removed, raises questions about technological convergence, or lost engineering traditions. Most confounding is the finish. The faces of many andesite blocks are polished to a degree of flatness, measurable by laser to within 0.02 millimeters. Experimental archaeologists like Jean-Pierre Perched have attempted to replicate such finishes using bronze tools and sand abrasion, but results fall short. AI simulations, factoring tool hardness, pressure angles, and labor time, estimate that such polishing, if done manually, would require over 2,000 hours per block. This opens the possibility that unknown techniques, abrasive slurries, high-frequency vibration, or even primitive lathing, were in use, techniques now lost to history. An architecture of warning? As AI reconstruction models approached completion in late 2024, a strange pattern began to emerge. Certain blocks appeared fractured not by erosion or time, but by trauma. The placement of large, jagged fragments scattered across the eastern courtyard suggested a high-energy displacement, not a gradual collapse. AI simulations showed that many blocks lay rotated between 28 degrees and 43 degrees from their assumed original positions, as if violently shifted. This prompted a chilling question. Was Puma Punku damaged by a sudden, catastrophic event? Geological data began to corroborate the theory. Radiocarbon dating of organic material beneath certain stone layers pointed to sudden burial episodes between AD 536 and 600, a period known globally for climatic chaos. In AD 536, volcanic eruptions in the northern hemisphere caused atmospheric dimming, crop failures, and a temperature drop lasting at least 18 months. These disruptions, referenced in both Roman and Chinese chronicles, may have triggered seismic activity in tectonically sensitive regions like the Andes. AI displacement models show plausible impact patterns consistent with localized quakes, or even an airburst-style explosion. Even more curious was the site's water system. Reflecting pools, drainage channels, and polished basins were not only geometrically aligned, they'd also seemed designed to reflect the sky. AI-backed light simulation from 2023 showed that on certain nights, especially around solstices and lunar maxima, light would strike particular slabs at oblique angles and reflect off shallow water. Some researchers speculate these basins may have been observation tools used to track stars, meteors, or atmospheric anomalies. If so, Puma Punku may have been a kind of sky-watching station, an early observatory or disaster memory complex. The possibility that Puma Punku served as both celestial observatory and catastrophe archive forces us to reevaluate the intelligence and foresight of its creators. But as reconstruction deepens, another question rises from the dust. Who exactly built it? If the Tiwanaku were the stewards, could someone else have laid the foundation? The physical layers of stone may hold clues, but the cultural layers, the vanished hands, the unspoken stories, carry even greater weight. Who built it? Traditionally, Puma Punku is credited to the Tiwanaku civilization, which flourished between AD 500 and 1000. But new analysis, including AI-predicted architectural phases, suggests the site's core platform may predate Tiwanaku by a century or more. Excavations between 2015 and 2020 revealed foundational layers beneath known Tiwanaku construction, composed of compacted fill, drainage tunnels, and large uncarved megaliths. Radiocarbon analysis of buried organic material in these lower layers yielded dates as early as AD 420, before known Tiwanaku expansion into the area. This raises a possibility. The Tiwanaku may have inherited Puma Punku from an earlier, now unknown culture. Support for this idea comes from differential craftsmanship. The lowest stone layers, primarily red sandstone, show larger block sizes but simpler cuts. The andesite carvings, known for their H-blocks and precise joints, often appear in higher layers, as if they were later additions. AI modeling of wear patterns also suggests the lower blocks were weathered longer, perhaps by 50 to 100 years, before the upper terraces were built. Then there is the silence of tools. Despite decades of excavation, no bronze chisels, alloyed carving instruments, or even shaping hammers have been found that match the marks on Puma Punku's hardest stones. The absence is glaring. Were the tools lost, melted down, or never there to begin with? Some researchers have suggested that the builders used organic tools, hardwood with abrasives, or even techniques now lost entirely. AI simulations from 2024 show that even minimal mechanical advantage, like simple reciprocating motion, could produce fine cuts if paired with abrasive slurry and consistent pressure. Such a method, though, would require deep engineering knowledge and time. To suggest that Puma Punku came from a lost lineage and to challenge how we view civilization itself, not as a steady rise from primitive roots, but as a cycle, where knowledge is gained, lost, and sometimes only rediscovered through stone. And if that's true, then everything we think we know about ancient engineering, about the intelligence of early cultures, is ripe for revision. Which brings us to the heart of the matter, why this one ruin, half collapsed on a Bolivian plain, may change everything about archaeology. Why this changes everything for archaeology. The implications of the AI reconstruction are profound. If Puma Punku was built using standardized templates, modular architecture, and astronomical engineering centuries before European contact, then the notion of primitive pre-Columbian cultures must be discarded. The Tiwanaku were not simply agriculturalists with ceremonial centers. They were planners, astronomers, and possibly inheritors of an even older engineering tradition. Puma Punku becomes not an anomaly, but evidence of a highly sophisticated Andean scientific culture. This forces re-examination of chronological frameworks. If the foundational layers of Puma Punku predate the Tiwanaku by 80 to 100 years, then other nearby structures may also be older than assumed. Sites like Acapana, Calasasaya, and even early Inca ceremonial sites may need to be redated. Scholars have already begun proposing revised timelines in journals since 2022, suggesting a cascading effect. Puma Punku as the key to recalibrating Andean prehistory. Even modern engineering may learn from the past. The interlocking stonework of Puma Punku, able to withstand 1,400 years of erosion, tremors, and neglect, could inspire contemporary building techniques. No mortar, yet no collapse. In a world facing infrastructure decay and seismic risk, ancient Andean builders may hold secrets to longevity. If we understand how they did it, we might build better. Not in imitation, but in appreciation of a lost genius, rediscovered in the data. Open questions and what we should look for next. Even with AI reconstruction, multispectral imaging, and high-resolution scans, Puma Punku remains unresolved. Some of its greatest secrets lie beneath the ground in unexcavated fill, buried chambers, or the unbroken silence of indigenous oral history. The next phase of discovery must be physical. Archaeologists are now identifying zones, particularly to the west of the central platform and along the eastern terrace walls, where buried foundations likely preserve pristine block placements. These areas, revealed through magnetometry and ground-penetrating radar in 2023, could confirm the digital model's accuracy. One key objective is the recovery of tools. If chisels, abrasives, or composite tools matching the cut precision can be found, it will either validate or refute current theories. Geochemical residue analysis is ongoing in labs in La Paz, Cusco, and Zurich, where researchers are looking for micro-abrasive particles, such as crushed quartz or hematite slurry in andesite pores. Finding even one tool or a shard consistent with cut geometry could anchor centuries of speculation. As of mid-2025, no such artifact has been confirmed, but a new dig season is planned for April 2026. Celestial alignments remain under scrutiny. Claims of solstice and lunar calibration require cross-verification from both astronomical software and cultural texts. Ethnoastronomers are comparing Puma Punku's alignments with the Quechua lunar calendar, the Aymara planting seasons, and Andean myth cycles to assess whether rituals match the AI-identified alignments. Field tests in June and December 2024, using light sensors and sky modeling, showed solar contact points on at least 6 major blocks during sunrise and sunset. supporting the idea of integrated celestial function, but needing further cultural validation. Finally, perhaps the most important frontier is intellectual honesty. AI opens doors, but also raises risks: overfitting, confirmation bias, and the seductive allure of precision without proof. The distinction between plausible reconstruction and projected fantasy must remain sharp. Peer-reviewed transparency, indigenous consultation, and open-source data release are essential. Since 2024, international teams have begun sharing their models under Creative Commons licenses to allow scrutiny and collaboration. Puma Punku must not become the next playground of pseudo-history, but a proving ground for archaeology that fuses the old with the new, science guided by wonder and wonder anchored by evidence. Puma Punku stands on the windswept Bolivian altiplano, a broken puzzle of red sandstone and andesite, shaped by hands we no longer know, and minds we may never fully understand. But with every scan, every simulation, every rediscovered groove or forgotten alignment, the stones begin to whisper again. Not in fantasy, but in form. Not in myth, but in mathematics. It is no longer enough to call Puma Punku a mystery. It is a message carved into the earth at 3,850 meters, encoded with geometry, marked by starlight, and grounded in a wisdom that may have once spanned generations. Whether built by Tiwanaku masters or a lost culture whose knowledge vanished in the clouds of AD 536, it challenges us to remember that not all intelligence is modern, not all engineering leaves blueprints, and not all ruins are silent. The next time we walk its fractured steps or trace its polished grooves, we must do so with humility. For in Puma Punku, we see not only what humanity was, but what it still could be.